Well, it all has to do with the African National Congress, which has released its nomination list for the top 6 positions ahead of the December elective conference. In the running for Secretary General position, Mdumiseni Ntuli is going head-to-head with Fikile Mbalula and Phumulo Masualle. Ntuli receiving just over 1,225 nominations to Masualle's 889 and Mbalula's 749 votes. That's the nomination. Now, let's speak more to one of the nominees, and it is Mdumiseni Ntuli that we speak to, who is hoping to be Secretary General. Mr. Ntuli, thank you very much for your time. Let me start with the obvious question. Are you surprised at the level of support you are receiving despite an unofficial endorsement from your province? In fact, you haven't received any endorsement from your province. Does this surprise you?
Good morning, Ntuli, and good morning to the viewers at home. Yes, of course, I'm very humbled. I'm very humbled by the overwhelming support that one has received, not just in KwaZulu-Natal, but to be a leading candidate in 5 provinces out of 9 is really something that is a great honor and a privilege for me. And I do want to say to the membership of the ANC, I really accept this responsibility with a great humility, understanding very well that it imposes a profound responsibility on my shoulders should I be successful to be elected the Secretary General of our movement.
Yeah, some people will hold the view that this, you not receiving an official endorsement from your home province is nothing unusual, really, because if you look at your contender, for example, Phumulo Masualle, he comes from the Eastern Cape. He has not received an official endorsement there either. However, he is still in the running nonetheless. Do you think this talks to a gradual elimination of slates in ANC conferences, which has dominated over the years?
Yes, of course, and that should be, it's actually an excitement for many of us. I think we are on a path to defeat the slate politics, which has obviously, as you know, brought about a major destruction of the value system of the African National Congress. It weakened the organization. It is to a larger extent because of the introduction and the entrenchment of slate politics, which effectively took root from 2007 up until today, that the movement has lost support amongst the people, that we have had heightened deep levels of divisions, a lack of coherence of the organization, leaders who are elected but really who do not have much to offer and who can't convince the great masses of our people that they are fit for purposes. Now that we are moving to this conference here, which in my own view is most likely to be one of the historic conferences that will go down in history and be remembered as probably the other 3, as one of the conferences that would be similar to the other 3 conferences that took place in Morocco in 1949 and in 1940, where it marked a turning point in the direction of our movement. And I would expect it really to reinvigorate the ANC and reposition it truly as a strategic center that provides direction to our people and a preeminent leader of the democratic forces and progressive forces in our country. So I'm very excited really that we are defeating the slate. And I think even those who are obsessed with the slate politics, they know internally within themselves that the tragedy over the past 3 months communicate a message that members of the ANC are very tired and very opposed to this problematic phenomenon.
All right. Well, we shall see where that really takes us and whether it is going to be something that becomes ingrained in the ANC. Let's talk about something interesting I observed post the announcement of these nominations, Mr. Ntuli, and that was a news headline which read that these are top six. It's a top six of scandals. How does that sit with you as a nominee?
Well, I didn't see that headline, but be that as it may, I don't know what was the substantive explanation around that kind of a headline.
Can I venture and perhaps say what the subtext around that headline might have been, and that is that a number of people are mired in controversy. Yes, they might not be before courts, but it is still a blemish nonetheless. It is still a blight that is not going away anytime soon in the ANC, and that is that many of the people in the ANC are seen as either having been mired in controversy, and that there are those, by the way, who sit in jail today as a direct result of corruption.
Well, now I understand what you mean. I think, actually, the fact of the matter is that it's not essentially many people in the ANC who are mired, as we are saying, in one form of scandal or allegation that has been leveled against them. It's a few of us who happen to occupy leadership responsibilities in the party, because the ANC is not necessarily made up of its members and the elected leadership. That is a small fraction of what constitutes the African National Congress. And of course, it is within that, even the smallest part of that fraction, where you are having these challenges of comrades that may be confronted by negative things of one form or another. So, yes, of course, people might then say, but these branches have chosen these comrades in this particular manner. I think the understanding that would have driven branches to take that particular direction is, as you are saying earlier on, in many instances, some of these alleged controversies or alleged negative things about those comrades, many of them are not matters that have gone through processes and ultimately resolved in a manner that confirmed in an uncertain term that a particular comrade has to take a responsibility for something. So my sense is that that is what had preoccupied the minds of the ANC membership when they were making a decision, fully aware that some amongst us may be having certain things that are yet to be concluded and whose conclusion might have a direct impact on the standing and the prestige of the African National Congress.
Well, I mean, call it coincidence. The person I'm going to talk to next, after I have spoken to you, is the former president of the Women's League, and she happens to be on the side of the screen as we are talking, and I'm immediately reminded of her statement that we all have smolanyana skeletons in the ANC. That kind of observation has almost become something that the ANC is framed when it comes to issues of corruption. And I'm immediately prompted to ask the question about whether this leadership, whoever emerges amongst you, is going to inspire confidence once 2024 comes around the corner.
I think it will. I think it should truly inspire confidence, despite the fact that there may be certain questions that are being raised or remain unanswered about some of our leaders who may be elected in the conference. But I do want to go back to the earlier point, because the statement we are referring to, which was made by Comrade Bathabile Dlamini, was a statement with regard to ANC members, not the ANC, some of the ANC members. Of course, she may have not said some of the ANC members, and she generalized and said, we are all. I'm arguing that, and this has been the historical position of the African National Congress, the ANC only is not just its members and let alone its elected leadership. It's the great masses of this country who have never joined the ANC and who have no desire to do so, but are loyal, are committed, they support it, they vote for the ANC in each and every election. And of course, it includes the progressive forces within the continent who look up to the ANC as their own organization despite the fact that they do not necessarily live in South Africa or they are non-South African. So then you can't say that the ANC, all of us in the ANC, we've got some form of skeleton of one form or another, because then it reduces the ANC to be, what I said, a tiny fraction, which is less than 1 million members and less than 5,000 leaders who are elected in various structures of the ANC. We have to understand the ANC in the broader sense of what it is. There is what in the ANC, Ntuli, a form and a content. The leadership and the membership constitute the form of what the ANC stands or represents. But we've got the content, which is really what the total makeup of the African National Congress, which, as I'm saying, transcends the few of us who are members and leaders of the African National Congress. And you can't say those people, all of them are caught up in one form or another of some skeleton that is following them or that is engulfed.
But you certainly cannot argue, unless you're saying that the president was wrong, by the way, because he said the ANC is accused, number one, on the score of corruption. Do you disagree with it?
Sure. So the president made that statement, and we had a very long discussion on the matter in the National Executive Committee. And, and the discussion was really centered around what constitutes the ANC and the context within which the president was making the statement. I agree with the president in the context of what he explained in the National Executive Committee about what he meant by the statement.
So you have to agree inadvertently with Batabile Dlamini as well. You can't say you agree with the president and you disagree with Batabile Dlamini. The two statements are essentially the same.
No. I'm coming to that point. I had said I agree with Comrade Batabile equally in the context of reference to us as members and leaders of the ANC, not the ANC in its totality. In the same way with the president, the agreement I'm saying I do have with him on that score relates to the context of talking about some in the ANC and members of the ANC, but not the ANC as a whole. The ANC as a whole, no. It can't. It has not been. It can. There's no way you can politically justify that the African National Congress in its totality, as I explained earlier on, it can be characterized and classified as accused number one. And the president agreed when we were engaging in the NEC that this is the context within which he was raising that matter. In a similar way that I think Comrade Batabile Dlamini was raising it. It's just that sometimes, Tony, you and I and many South Africans loosely define the ANC on the basis of its membership and leadership. And I'm insisting that that is a narrow definition of what this national liberation movement is and has always been.
I'm wrapping up this interview, Mr. Ntuli, and I want to conclude it on the score of a promise of a better life for all South Africans. And this promise was made by your party. At some point, it was even an election slogan. 28 years down the line, the people of South Africa, if not all, but they have gradually lost confidence in the ANC. What is going to bring that back to the party, particularly the leadership that is going to be elected at Nasrec? What is different that you are going to offer to the South African public at a time of energy insufficiency, at a time of crime? Just yesterday, we received those crime stats. The murder of the most vulnerable children. All of this, it's the socio-economic conditions of South Africa that is an ongoing cry that leadership in the country has got to stand up and do something. So what is it that this new leadership, hopefully you will be part of it, you're going to bring to the table in order to change the material conditions of the people?
Tony, you are quite correct with regard to the fact that there is a very, very thick mood of pessimism in the country and negativity in the country around what's happening in the economy, what's happening in terms of a fight against crime, and the fact that we are regressing. There's a serious regression with regard to our strategy to build a better life for all. Of course, South Africans know very well, as I do, that the great progress has been achieved, and of course the new challenges that we're confronted with now have made it difficult for the ANC-led government to sustain that trajectory of moving ahead with the task of the reconstruction and development of our country and the building of an economy that supports our people. What I think must be a central message, because the factors that have led to the ANC losing that support amongst the people, firstly, is that we haven't addressed the issue of internal conflict within the ANC. We have to deal with that issue throughout the party, throughout, at the level of the branch and everywhere else, because it contributes to people being demobilized against the ANC. Secondly, the ANC has not done well on the economy. We need a new conversation around what needs to, and it must not be a populist conversation. There is a discussion that is yet to be concluded and needs to be concluded. The ANC-led government must give leadership to that discussion in the ANC. That of finalizing the social compact between the partners that are engaged in network. Because unless there is an investment done on one side by the private sector, but equally a deliberate action taken by the state to roll out massive infrastructure projects on the ground, we will not succeed to deal with the current scourge of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. But that needs a particular caliber and a type of leadership. What we are battling to do at this stage is to persuade all these social partners to work together, not only to agree on the investment that needs to be done, but equally to have a common view about the sacrifices that are attended to each one of them in order to build a South Africa that is going to achieve the objectives of the National Democratic Revolution. Now, that will not happen unless you have a leadership emerges from this conference, united, determined, and focused that these things are supposed to be done. Not what we had when we came back from the last conference, unfortunately, where the leadership got elected, and just hardly a year when it was elected, conflict erupted within even the level of the top six of the ANC. Once that happened, you are bound to be diverted. You are bound to the energy spent on things that are not going to be central to the lives of our people. And there is nobody in this country that has the capacity to build a better life for all South Africans. It is only the ANC, and the ANC must sort itself out in order to achieve that objective.
Mdumiseni Ntuli, thank you very much for your time. He is Secretary General, hopeful going into this conference in December. Thanks indeed for your time.